I've had my fair share of multiplayer video games. Apex Legends, Call of Duty, For Honor, Spellbreak, Fortnite, and Fortnite. But I can't tell you how many times I finished playing these games and almost had a stroke from being so infuriated. It happens. And now let me clarify something. Cooperative games are different, like Monster Hunter or Payday 2, for example. It's where you team up with friends in order to earn that sweet cash by robbing banks and other things. Like, that's completely fine with me, and it's actually a lot of fun. But when you have to go against real people in a competitive setting, it's not my cup of tea, and I really can't stand it at some points. You know, I don't play games to interact with people. I play games after a long day of interacting with people. So today, I want to tell you why I prefer single-player games over multiplayer. Pretty straightforward. And at the end of the day, guys, you play whatever game you feel like playing. I have my reasons, and you have yours. I'm not saying that if you enjoy multiplayer games that you are beneath me. I am the king of this! Like, no. Dude, you're fine, it's cool. And if you do enjoy this video, a like or subscribe would greatly help out the channel. It may be a simple thing for you, but it means the world to us. Also, I want to apologize for not uploading a lot recently. I try to upload 3 to 4 days, you know, but college and stuff, so forgive me. But anyways, without further ado, let's talk about why single-player games are better. Immersion is probably the biggest difference between the two genres, because while single player is more focused on the landscape, characters, story, and music, you know, things that add on to the immersion factor, multiplayer games are primarily concerned with the never-ending struggle of balancing their guns or characters, which they never get right. And I don't blame them for that because it's a really difficult thing to accomplish. Apex Legends will be my primary example for today's video since it is one of my favorite multiplayer games, and I want to compare this battle royale to the indie game that most of you probably don't know about called Journey. Now, Journey is a wonderfully simple game that has you cruise along the sands and structures of this mysterious world, leading you through a silent story of wonder. It's a great game, and it's only about like 2 hours, so hey, if you have some extra cash and a little bit of spare time, try this game out, it's definitely worth it. But the mysterious tone of Journey is a strong component of the game's immersion because it leads the player into questioning every event that occurs. Something like, who is my character? What are these ribbon-like creatures? What are these statues? It incentivizes the player to be more involved with the story, so that you can answer at least some of your questions. When it comes to the graphics, the most effective are usually the games who try to look as photorealistic as possible. Games like The Last of Us Part 2, God of War, or Final Fantasy VII Remake. These games have graphics that try to at least replicate real life, so it makes sense that we would be immersed the most in this type of atmosphere, especially when they have a good foundation in world building, when their worlds or universes make sense. But that's another matter entirely. However, I would argue that depending on the art style and how a game conveys its unique graphics can be just as effective, if not even more. I mean, look at games like Cuphead, which replicates the animation of 1930s cartoons. It's freaking awesome. And they do a wonderful job of simulating that part of history. Now, Journey is a mixture of many styles. There's really not like one specific one to categorize it, but I think it more so leans towards very simple geometric composition, which in layman's terms means minimalism. It's very simplistic, very easy to understand. And this art style stays consistent throughout the entire journey. Get it? Journey. And it breathes life into this game that no other art style can do. Now, there are many other qualities when it comes to immersion too, such as music, world building, and story that allows the player to be infatuated within their own universe. And my favorite part of Journey is actually this scene right here, where you simply glide through the sand within the sunset in the background. This lighting is just incredible. I love it. I was seriously mesmerized by the enchanting graphics, how the light flooded in and out with the music that carried my ears just as fast as the sand did my character. It was at this point that I was simply enjoying the ride that the game was taking me on, and that's when it clicked. I was like, oh, Journey has incredible immersion. Now, Apex Legends and other multiplayer games don't have this type of immersion because there is no story, no world building, nothing of the same variety, which isn't bad, mind you. A focus on gameplay is perfectly okay, but the immersion for multiplayer games is usually not there. At least not in the traditional sense. Because here's the thing, I'll be honest, whenever I play Apex, I am laser focused on the competitive nature of a battle royale. And that's a huge plus. This can be applied to any multiplayer game that's good because everyone has one goal in mind: to win. But the thing is, guys, is that multiplayer games don't have character development or well-constructed stories, so there are very little emotions tied to the experience, besides, you know, rage and victory. I mean, look at The Last of Us, where our main character Joel goes through a detrimental loss at the beginning of the game, but slowly develops a relationship with Ellie that essentially replaces the daughter he lost years ago. You experience joy, sadness, anticipation, anger, surprise, fear, and many other emotions that make this game's story absolutely fantastic. So yeah, multiplayer games have immersion from a competitive standpoint, but personally, I prefer the more artistic side of immersion, like a game's story or world building, but to each their own. Let's talk about the grinding aspect for a second. I'm not a big fan of this. And let me explain what I mean. Let's go to, because I have a lot of single player games to choose from. Let me think. Let's go with Hades. I recently finished this game, and it was great. It was, I definitely see why it was a nomination for Game of the Year. But my point here is that there's a certain grind to this game when you first start. You have to reach the surface by repeatedly dying and becoming stronger each time coming closer to the goal, which is to escape the underworld. The difference here, though, is that I can take a break from this game for as long as I want and jump right back into it without any sort of consequence. When it comes to multiplayer games, if I take a break for a couple of hours, it's as if I never played the game beforehand. I haven't played Apex in over a month when Season 10 first started. I like to keep up with it, don't get me wrong, but I haven't played it in a long time. And I can only imagine the amount of times I will be sent right back to the lobby within the first minute of the match. Not exactly something I want to go back to, because I know that others have been playing this game non-stop since release, or even those who played just the game more than I do. And it's really discouraging. Even the battle passes are such a grind too. Dude, I can't stand it. They expect you to play the game so much, because based on the average time it takes for a player to complete a battle pass in Apex Legends, that's around 100 hours, which that person would have to be playing 1 hour minimum each day from the release of the battle pass in order to achieve tier 100. And listen, like, again, you do what you want, but I like to hop from game to game. I like to have a variety on this channel. I don't want to focus on one single franchise or genre. As most of you know, Monster Hunter is one of my favorite video game series ever. I love it to death. I still love it to death. But here's the kicker, right? I haven't touched a Monster Hunter game in like, what, a few months? Yeah, I haven't played it in a long time because I got bored and I wanted to try out other games, even though I love the series to death. And also, the recent one kind of sucks. For those who are wondering, actually, because I'm hopping from game to game, I'm currently playing Bayonetta 2, actually, and it's really nice so far. The combat's great. And I think this is a good time to point out that multiplayer games are the literal definition of insanity.
Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change.
They have you do the same thing over and over again. Same couple of maps, same guns, same characters with little to no change. And honestly, I don't really mind the redundancy of gameplay, but there has to be like a reason for it. Like in Dark Souls, it's the same thing with every single boss. Dodge, roll, attack, counterattack, learn their patterns. But at least it's a little bit different each time. And there's a reason for all of it. You have to reach the end of the game. I totally get that. But with multiplayer games, like what's the point? What is the point? Now, I'm not saying that these games aren't fun, by the way. I mean, I've been playing Apex Legends in and out ever since it was released. I've been playing the game since before Season 1. But for me to stay consistent with it, you know, like every few months I'll jump back into it. But my main point here is that multiplayer games require so much of your time in order to stay consistent, to simply keep up with the competition, and with the redundant nature of their gameplay, I just personally don't have that desire. I don't really care that much. And this can be applied to any multiplayer game, not just Apex Legends, but For Honor as well, for example. Dude, I cannot fathom the unholy rage that would happen if I went back there. I haven't played that game in a couple of years. Yeah, I am way behind the loop. That being said, I do hope For Honor 2 comes out one day. I would actually be willing to try it again. But yeah, this is actually a good segue to my next point, rage. One of the reasons why For Honor made me rage uncontrollably was the toxic nature of the community, the endless teabags and wows that would pop up on my screen. It was an interesting time in my life. And look, I understand that I'm salty, it happens, okay? But consider this. Let's say that the Zelda community is one of the most toxic fan bases in all of video games. Just as an example, I don't actually mean that. I would not know how toxic the community is because the Zelda series is a single-player experience. You have no interactions with any other players, and I prefer it that way. No doubt crossing my mind. I like to discuss or talk to others about games. I mean, that's what I made this YouTube channel for. But I want to do it outside the actual gaming experience. Because with any game that has voice chat, you will always have people who are going to be toxic. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been toxic myself on certain occasions. It happens to everyone, and it really sucks the fun out of the game for the both of us. Another reason why I always rage when it comes to multiplayer games is RNG, which mainly applies for battle royales, because you're hoping for good loot, you know, right out of the gate in order to have an advantage. And it feels amazing when it happens, but when your opponent next door has the entire armory at their disposal, you can understand why I get a little bit angry. And let me make sure you understand something. There's a huge difference between being annoyed and angry when it comes to me. When I get annoyed, I huff and puff like a whiny child. I'm not gonna lie, it happens. But then it dissipates. It goes away very quickly. When I get angry, I stomp, shout, curse, and break my mom's bear statue. Don't tell her, by the way. And it makes me want to quit playing. It really does. Once I reach my boiling point, I decide to stop it there before things get worse. Multiplayer games have the tendency to always end in anger for me, whereas single player, I decide to stop playing because I simply need a break. Dark Souls is a great example because you would think with this game being notoriously difficult that I would get angry at it, and it certainly has its bullcrap moments, but no, not really. I maybe gotten angry at this game and its series like a handful of times, but out of how many times I've beaten these games, 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne and Sekiro, yeah, I mean, I get annoyed, but I don't ever really get angry. There's a huge difference for me, and single player games simply don't do that. And the reason why it doesn't happen that much is there is a set bar of difficulty that with enough practice can be overcome. You can win against these bosses if you learn their patterns and learn how to counterattack effectively. However, the uncertainty, the unfair advantages, and the third parties that can occur during multiplayer games, the unfairness of it all makes me lose it. And listen, look, I completely understand the other perspective, alright? I understand why going up against real people is fun because everyone is different and you don't know how they're gonna react. You don't know what their playstyle is. I totally get it. And I have fun with it too some points, but most of the time, no. But I think what really makes it annoying for me is that you can never fight the player who beats you the first time. You can never replicate the exact scenario and try again. Also, side note by the way, another thing that makes me a little bit peeved off is how much money these games have stole from me. The microtransactions are ridiculous. I've made a video about that in the past, so I'm not gonna really go into it, but yeah, that's also kind of annoying. Lastly, let's talk about variety, because let's be honest here. Let's be brutally honest. The most popular multiplayer games right now, what do most of them have in common? They're shooter games. The majority of my time playing multiplayer games involve pointing a gun at someone and missing all of my headshots. Now, of course, these different shooters have enough variety where they don't feel like a copy and paste. Call of Duty is more realistic. I don't know, it's different. Apex Legends has character abilities, Spellbreak has gauntlets that cast spells, and it's actually a lot of fun. Fortnite has building, so they are different enough, but the main foundation here is... And there's also Pokemon Unite and Among Us that are completely different as well. Let's not forget about that. But when it comes to single-player games, there's so much more variety, even in the same categories. Allow me to introduce to you God of War, Hades, and Dark Souls. They are all action games, but their main mechanics make them feel so distinct and unique. God of War involves mastering combos between your Leviathan, the Chaos Blades, and boy! Involving a deep pool of skills and abilities that include runes and talismans to really spice up the flow of combat. Hades has ever-changing chambers throughout the underworld with the gods of Olympus aiding you on your journey, offering unique abilities and skills that can be completely different on the next attempt. Not to mention you have a mirror that can upgrade Zagreus or multiple weapons to choose from, my personal favorite being the sword. Dark Souls has minimal controls like a light or strong attack, but you can also use magic as well. But the key element here is not what you can do, it's how you adapt to your surroundings and current situations. While your character has a simplistic moveset, each boss has a complex set of combos, attacks, and different phases that makes every single encounter feel like the final boss. You can also replay Dark Souls numerous times to try out different builds and weapons. Like, you see my point here? Even though these three games are action games, they are unique from each other, and let's not forget horror games, story games, and other genres within the single-player category that you cannot transfer to multiplayer. You can't really have a good multiplayer game that's focused on story, you know what I'm saying? It has to be around action or the gameplay. I mean, that's just what I think, and my personality involves what games I lean towards, and the same applies to you. Some of you may be addicted to the competitive nature of everything in life. I had a friend in high school, he was exactly like that. And others may prefer just to be there for the ride of the story. I'm not saying that multiplayer games are bad, what I'm saying is that single-player games are better. But that's just me. Let me know what you guys think, and of course, thank you so much for watching today's video. It's been a while because college and other things have gotten in the way, so I apologize for that. But hopefully I'll get into the rhythm of things again. If you want to support the channel, I have a Patreon, and you can also become a member. It really does help out. You don't have to, but I'm just saying. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like, and of course, to subscribe for more content like this. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone, and of course, stay safe.